Hey there, it's Liz Kroft with Soul Property Advisors here in Santa Cruz County. And in this video, I want to help you make the decision on whether or not you should or shouldn't renovate your current home before you put it onto the market. The first thing I want to tell you is it's going to be very much dependent on the market conditions. If you're in a red hot market where there's a shortage of homes for sale, a lot of the times you can get by with a little bit less renovation. Because when buyers are out there looking, there's not a lot of choices for them. And well, when there's not a lot of choices, buyers might just be willing to make do with things that might not be exactly what they want. But since there's no other options, they'll go ahead and they'll take it and they'll deal with it. Whereas if you're in a market where there's a lot of homes for sale, say there's a surplus of supply of homes for sale, well, now buyers might have 10 different choices, and they're going to be a little bit more picky and choosy about the home that they ultimately do pick. So you might have to do a little bit more in a market like that. And that's the first thing to consider, is the market conditions in which you're up against when you're thinking about selling that home. Now the next thing is, the one non-negotiable that I recommend on every single home when it comes to renovations is finish the unfinished projects. There's nothing worse than walking through a home and seeing one wire sticking out of a wall where you could have probably finished that little electrical project for a couple $100. But a buyer sees that electrical wire sticking out of the wall that goes to nowhere, and their brain instantly turns a molehill into a mountain. And they start thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to rewire the entire home, and what else did they not finish? People lose their mind over the smallest things. So any of those unfinished projects that you have, you've got to take care of those. Another one that I see, I was just in a home the other day, and you look up in the ceiling, and there you could see a patch job in the ceiling, and they never painted it. Well, where does your brain go? Well, if there's a patch job in the ceiling, the roof was probably leaking, and there's going to be mold, and the whole house is going to fall down. It's insane how insane people can go when it comes to these tiny little things. So you've got to finish all those unfinished projects. You want to have the home clean and move-in ready. If buyers come in and start thinking, I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and I've got to do this, what about that? Well, they're going to freak out. So that's going to be the second thing to consider, is always finish those unfinished projects. And then the third thing is, you want to be reasonable with what you do. That's going to get you the most bang for the buck. I have sellers come to me a lot of times and they're like, oh, I just did this, and I did this, and I fixed that. And I'm like, oh, well, why did you do that? You literally just threw away money. I met with a client over the weekend and I went out to his home and he was like, oh yeah, I'm putting some new sliders in here and I'm going to do this. And I'm like, no, stop, don't. His house has a totally dysfunctional floor plan. The home is in really rough shape. Whoever buys this particular home is going to come in and completely renovate the entire thing. There's no sense in buying a sliding glass door when somebody might completely change the entire floor plan. Now on the flip side of things, I had another client recently where we went out to their home and the home looked really nice except for the master bathroom. It had just some old dark oak cabinets, which is just very out of style today, and we were able to come in there for a few $100s and just throw a fresh coat of paint onto those cabinets, and we ended up selling that home for $20,000 above what the most recent home sold for in that same area. So there's going to be times and places where one house made no sense, I didn't want him to spend a single penny, and then there's going to be other times where it might make sense to spend a few hundred or a few $1,000s, because a few hundred or a few thousand could be $10,000 to $20,000 when it comes to that sales price. So the key is you really have to be working with an expert that knows the market conditions, has the connections to help you finish these projects, and knows which projects are going to give you the positive return on investment and which ones are going to give you a negative return on investment, where you're literally just throwing money away. And I'd love to be that person to help advise you. If you're interested in having me come out, do a walkthrough of your home, no cost, feel free to call or text me, no obligation, 831-854-7489. I'm Liz Kroft, co-founder and realtor with Soul Property Advisors and the 2021 president of the Women's Council of Realtors.